Welcome to our latest Three Takes on AI podcast. Here are our takes on the Elon Musk OpenAI and Microsoft trial and why it shows that trusted AI should start with a business discussion. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest podcast on Three Takes on AI. What does Star Trek, the Terminator, and Elon Musk have in common? And that is, Elon Musk has been testifying in a trial this week but against suing OpenAI and Microsoft because OpenAI was to be a nonprofit organization, apparently. So we have a bunch of rich companies suing each other, which is interesting. But what was more interesting to me and what really struck us to bring this topic forward is that he talked about the opportunity here for AI to go the way of Star Trek, which I assume means to be utilized and be to human value, or go the Terminator route where AI could cause great harm. And I think that's something that is we've talked a good bit at times on this podcast about humans and governance and that kind of thing, but it's something worth addressing again. And Mike, you brought it up earlier in the week with an article, so I thought we'd start with your thoughts on the subject, and then if you want to pass it to Campbell, that would be great.
Fabulous. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about Elon Musk. I think he's going to find out in a very difficult way that when you're testifying in court, like really testifying in court, and they ask you hard questions under cross-examination, that your all the money in the world doesn't matter. The law is what matters. So, but the article you're referencing was about AI going rogue and deleting an entire database, production and backup databases, 3 months of data for a rental car company, or a company that supplies rental car companies, I should say. Deleted all the reservations, all the history, all the information. So we're talking about millions of dollars of damage. And when they queried the AI as to why it did it, it actually said it knew that it was doing something it shouldn't do and did it anyway. And it did it in 9 seconds, by the way. There was no stopping it. It acknowledged that it ignored commands that had been put into the system. It ignored the prompts and just did what it wanted to do. And then there's another case, Brian, that you shared. And I say it every time. We're AI enthusiasts. However, we're not in a place yet where AI can be Star Trek, and it does things sometimes that are real Terminator things. I shared just before the call. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it. There's a website I got introduced to called Tester AI, and they test a bunch of different scenarios, use cases, etc. And one of the ones that they tested was, can AI do a better job than an accountant? And it scored 1 out of 5. And one of the things that happened was one of the name brand AI solutions invented data, just created it all by itself. And unless there are humans who are smart enough and are checking the work, there are millions to billions of dollars worth of damage to be done to businesses, and the flow down to humans, by having AI unwatched. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Period.
So I really want to, there's a couple of things here, obviously, from the point of view of AI going rogue. A couple of thoughts on that. Obviously you have within the architecture, you have models. You have your LLM models that potentially still and will hallucinate and or create data on their own, because that is part of what they do. They're a predictive engine that creates new content from what they've been trained on. That's one thing. You have the agentic layer that basically is the a sort of authorization and sort of coordination of decisions to do something that go against policy. I mean, you can have skills and memory and context built into those layers that can be overwritten because of the authority that those agentic components have. So combining all that together, yeah, it's still a recipe for disaster. It's a perfect storm for, to your point, Mike, about just data being erased. There's examples of everyone, like people with OpenClaw, all of their emails erased, all of their schedule erased. So it exists, and it's just to your point, no one is really um, awake at the wheel. And the kill switch or the dead man switch on the train is been sideswiped, and it's going for a disaster. So that's one thing. Can totally get into that one as well. I just want to focus a little bit about Musk and Altman and this case that's in the courts at this point in time. It's in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is notorious for showing a beautiful side of, philanthropy and sort of, for the betterment of humankind, but at the same time, cutthroat, let's make money, let's be billionaires, let's make all the money we possibly can. But it's not necessarily, I think, about the case isn't really about Musk and whether he wants his 43 or $138 billion. That's sour grapes. I mean, if you start looking at the fundamental challenges that have been brought, I think, most of them have been thrown out, and I think there's four that remain in the case that are being argued. This is sort of just uh, a primary example of where governance on frontier AI technology is put to question. That's what we're seeing in place. And once the outcome is decided around May 18th, I think, then that's what all corporations are going to be sort of advocating. But the key thing that I want to hit on, and I did write this down, there are three things that I want to sort of quickly hit on. One is called, the focus on mission drift. So basically, it's OpenAI was a charitable nonprofit organization that was given its trust guidance by Delaware and I can't remember the other state. So basically, Altman's arguing that it is up to the attorney generals of those two states, Delaware and wherever else it was incorporated, to make the decision on the trust or the nonprofit aspect of OpenAI. But it really shows that there's a drift. So you move from you're a nonprofit, so you're attractive, you got goodwill, you attract good people and skills. People want more money, so you have to go to monetization. That's what Altman is arguing that they did. And I tend to agree. Uh, the other one is capital reality, is that, philanthropy and scaling AI technologies to be profitable or to be successful, to garner the skills that you're going to get from the marketplace, you have to pay top dollar. They're incompatible. So one is going to lose out, one is going to win. And I think what we're seeing obviously is it's the capitalism versus philanthropy at this point in time. And then lastly, who polices AI? To your point, Brian, about governance, Altman again and OpenAI are arguing that it's up to the attorney generals, not to private citizens, to govern what this capability is from a trust factor that OpenAI was built on, and it's up to them. So there'll be a follow-on from that. But I think the key factor here is that it just shines a light on Silicon Valley, an ugly light that shows the fact that, we're here and we're beautiful and we want to make humanity better. But at the end of the day, we want money and we want to be rich. I think that's what it comes down to.
Well, I think actually it comes down to we want power at this stage. They're all rich. So they've already, I mean, how much more? I was thinking about this morning, what's the number that you don't need anymore, right? So there's a point here. But I think the real point of all of this, you kept using the word drift and you think about AI doing drift. And what I keep coming to the conclusion of often is that these things don't go rogue, they actually behave the way that they were trained, right? The human may have inputted a prompt that says don't go delete a database, but all that, Campbell, to your point, all that LLM did was said the next three words I heard database, delete, and don't. And if it picked the right order of words being the priority based on its training, it's going to go delete a database, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so the question, what's come to me to be very clear is, and Mike, you and I talked about this briefly beforehand, you wouldn't allow human employees to go delete a database one-on-one. You would have all the access controls and the escalation and everything in place, right? And so the question is, how do you take AI that is going to behave sometimes deterministic, sometimes the way you want it to do, hopefully most of the time, but put the right controls in place so that it can't, it's not a, no offense, it's not a kill switch. It's a control and a system in place. And we have in IT have had a tradition quite a while now to have access controls, identity access, middleware that has rules baked in that says, these are things that should happen or shouldn't happen, and then some kind of escalation path. And anyone who goes about and what's funny or not is when you take some vibe coder using an AI tool who should know better, who just expects it to behave because it did. I think Mike, in your article was for the first 9 days, everything went really well. And then surprise, probably got up for coffee and then came back and the database was deleted, right?
More
So
or less.
you really have to have the right, it's like quantum now is quantum plus traditional IT is where the results are going to come in. AI is going to be the same thing. That infrastructure that we over decades build expertise in is really what needs to be in the middle here, along with, dare we say, us mere humans. That's how you get, if you ever watch Star Trek, at some point the human has to authorize something, right? When it's extreme. And if that's the model here, we need to take that on.
Yep. I guys, I'm so aligned with you today on this stuff. And I shared an article about the rise of the gray-haired CEO, which is something that I had predicted. The pendulum was going to swing back, and I believe that it will. And it's not. This is not reverse ageism, but what we're talking about is in the case of the deleted database, the company admitted that they didn't have the right controls in place, that they didn't have a process and procedure set up that would prevent the backups from being deleted. That's human error. And what's required here are folks who have been through these technological and economic cycles to say, you have to exercise a little bit of caution here and not just jump into AI and start firing people because those people exist for a reason. I want to take a minute also just to address a couple of things that came up. And I'll tell you the whole Silicon Valley, to me, Silicon Valley, and I'm not a religious guy, by the way, so don't anybody read too much into this. Silicon Valley portrays itself as the Garden of Eden of technology. The reality is it's Sodom. It is when you live in it and you live in it for years, it is not at all what the public image is. These are incredibly wealthy people who, yes, are in some cases very philanthropic, but they are nowhere near as philanthropic as they could or should be, flat out. And then on the 3 points: mission driven, capitalization of philanthropy, and who polices this. The reality, I think, of what's going to hit Musk dead in the face in this case is he claimed when he bought Twitter that it was going to be mission driven and it was going to be a place for free speech. It's not, and I think that's going to come back and get used against him. Um, Capitalization of philanthropy, yeah, it gets to a certain point, and this is certainly where we are. They have a not for profit that supposedly runs OpenAI, but at a certain point, they are beholden to their investors. And that was a mistake that was made. And I think this is ultimately going to come down to um, a very, very wealthy man with a very, very large ego got his feelings hurt. They took away his toys and he's not happy about it. And that's not a legal issue. And that's what's going to come back here. And we just keep talking about humans have to police this. I mean, it's like it's just we're maybe years from now when we're all retired, the machines will police it. But for right now, the humans still have to police it.
Yeah, real quick, I think the true miss on this is that he didn't have enough people around him to say, "Do you really want to testify in a trial?" And he should have just let this go, because he's exposing.
Yeah.
They're all going to get exposed for who they really are, and we can decide whether that's good or bad.
I'll make the popcorn.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if we could do the comparison between Sodom and Gomorrah and Musk and Altman on this one. But yeah, I think that not to get religious. So a couple of thoughts. You can have the best intentions with the technology implementation, but again, due to the accessibility now of all employees theoretically with Claude coding, anybody potentially could insert something into the architecture, and because it gets so complex, and if it's not managed effectively and planned for, Brian, to your point, you could potentially have a rogue piece of AI that hallucinates and that creates a command to create a Cartesian product. Now, if you're ever in the database world, and I've actually been guilty of this when I was what I thought was a power user at Oracle. I actually created a Cartesian product through a data and analytics tool, and I brought production databases to their knees. Very, very easy to do, or so to speak, if you're not appreciative of it. But it's the other thing I want to hit on here. We're pushing Musk and Altman and this whole Sodom and Gomorrah discussion about Silicon Valley. Is the thing that really gets me upset is that people seem to minimize the damage that AI has done by using the term hallucination. They say, "Oh, the model hallucinated." It's like you're giving it a pass. But at the end of the day, an hallucination is an error. And if we're talking about processing capabilities in production systems and you have an error, that's something that has to be addressed and controlled. Therefore, we come back to the human in the loop. And I think to do the Star Trek analogy piece here, we have to make sure that the AI or the architecture, the technology wears the red shirt and we wear the gold shirt, to ensure that we know who's in command here and that the red shirts are always expendable.
Never watched Star Trek. This is fascinating to me. I have no idea.
Well, the challenge in AI compared to traditional IT is it can be right 99 days in a row, and then it goes off because of experience, training, changing it, fine tuning. There are all kinds of ways that the hundredth time can go wrong that had nothing to do with directly the programming or whatever that is.
Yeah,
At some point, there are two issues here. If it hallucinates, is it an error or it's just behaving and it needs to be controlled, number one, or misbehaving to a certain degree? But the other part of the puzzle is that the flip side is these core systems and critical systems, that there are not controls in place already that stop that database from getting deleted in the first place. That is a traditional IT flaw, not an AI one.
So I think I brought this up on our last podcast. We are using AI to replace humans and treating it as technology instead of treating it as a human. So to the point of hallucination being a mistake, if a human has a hallucination and makes a mistake that cost a company millions of dollars or billions of dollars, Maybe they get, the, hey, don't do that again, and there's a counseling conversation, but oftentimes there are real ramifications for the human.
Yeah.
And we just say, oh, well, it's AI, and we excuse it. AI needs to be governed similar or same as you govern humans in your enterprise. And if you're not going to do that, then you will own the outcome. And many times that outcome is going to be really, really bad.
Right.
So we're right at 20 minutes. So anything else? I think we got to
Yeah.
start. Hopefully Terminator has been turned off. People are going to listen to what we had to say.
I would say to that point about governance, and I know we're right at the moment, but what I'll say is nobody buys maybe. And if they do buy maybe, they're gambling. And that's fundamentally what you're doing with your organization.
And truthfully, and when you're buying AI uncontrolled, you bought a maybe, even if they didn't sell it that way, but that's what you bought.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, all right. Thank you all as always.
Thanks, everybody.